Entitled sister demanded I give up my scholarship to MIT because she deserved it more, then tried to sabotage my graduation when I refused. My sister Melissa is 2 years older than me, and from the moment she could walk, she was the golden child in our household. Where I was quiet and studious, she was outgoing and charming. Where I spent my evenings buried in textbooks, she was out with friends or participating in school activities that my parents deemed more valuable than academic achievement. Don't get me wrong, Melissa isn't unintelligent, but she never applied herself academically the way I did. She coasted through high school with B's and C's, relying more on her personality than her grades. Our parents, particularly our mother, always made it clear that Melissa was destined for great things. She would become a doctor or a lawyer, someone important who would make the family proud. Meanwhile, my academic achievements were acknowledged but never celebrated. When I brought home straight A's, it was expected. When Melissa brought home a B+ in chemistry, there was a family dinner to celebrate. The dynamic became even more apparent when college application season arrived during my senior year. I had been planning for MIT since I was 14, when I first discovered my passion for aerospace engineering. I spent summers attending math camps, participated in robotics competitions, and even conducted an independent research project on propulsion systems that caught the attention of several professors. When I received my acceptance letter along with a full academic scholarship, I was over the moon. My parents' reaction was lukewarm at best. They congratulated me, but there was something restrained about their enthusiasm. Melissa, who was finishing her sophomore year at the local community college with plans to transfer, seemed almost annoyed by my achievement. She made several comments about how lucky I was and how unfair it was that some people just had things handed to them. The real drama began about a week after I received my acceptance. Melissa had been unusually quiet during family dinners, and I could sense tension building. Our parents kept exchanging glances, and there were hushed conversations that stopped whenever I entered the room. Finally, they called a family meeting. My mother began by explaining that Melissa had been doing some soul-searching and had decided that she wanted to pursue engineering as well. She had apparently taken a few science courses at community college and discovered a passion for the field. This was news to me, as Melissa had never shown any interest in math or science beyond the required courses she struggled through in high school. Then came the bombshell. My mother explained that Melissa felt she deserved the MIT opportunity more than I did because she was older and had more life experience. She argued that I could get into any college with my grades, but this was Melissa's one chance to attend a prestigious institution. The logic was that I should decline my acceptance and scholarship so that Melissa could apply for the spring semester as a transfer student. I sat there in stunned silence as my parents nodded along with this absurd proposal. When I finally found my voice, I pointed out that Melissa didn't have the grades, test scores, or background to get into MIT. Even if I declined my spot, there was no guarantee that she would be accepted. My father brushed off these concerns, saying that Melissa was a people person who could interview well and convince the admissions committee to overlook her academic record. The more I protested, the more frustrated my family became. They accused me of being selfish and ungrateful. My mother reminded me of all the sacrifices they had made for my education, as if working part-time jobs and studying hard had been easy for me. They painted Melissa as someone who had finally found her direction in life and needed family support to achieve her dreams. When I refused to even consider giving up my acceptance, Melissa broke down crying. She accused me of always trying to one-up her and make her feel stupid. She claimed that I had deliberately chosen engineering because I knew she was interested in it, which was completely false since I had been passionate about aerospace long before she ever mentioned science. My parents comforted her while treating me like the villain for not wanting to sacrifice my future for hers. The next few months leading up to graduation were miserable. My family made it clear that they disapproved of my decision. They stopped asking about my college preparations and seemed to take every opportunity to remind me how disappointed they were. Meanwhile, they encouraged Melissa to apply to engineering programs at other schools, building up her confidence while tearing down mine. Melissa did apply to several engineering programs, but her applications were rejected across the board. Her grades from community college were mediocre, and she had no background in advanced mathematics or science. Instead of accepting these rejections as a natural consequence of her academic record, she became even more bitter toward me. She blamed me for ruining her chances by refusing to give her mine. Graduation day should have been one of the best days of my life. I was valedictorian, had been accepted to my dream school with a full scholarship, and was ready to start the next chapter of my life. Instead, it turned into a nightmare because of my sister's jealousy and need for attention. The morning of graduation, I woke up to find that someone had poured bleach all over my graduation dress. The white fabric was stained and unwearable, and there was no time to find a replacement. When I confronted my family about it, Melissa claimed she had no idea how it happened, but I could see the satisfaction in her eyes. My parents suggested I wear one of Melissa's dresses, but nothing she owned was appropriate for the occasion. I ended up having to rush to the mall and buy an expensive dress that I couldn't really afford, making me late for the pre-graduation ceremony events. But that was just the beginning of Melissa's sabotage attempts. During the ceremony itself, I was supposed to give the valedictorian speech. I had spent weeks writing and rehearsing it, focusing on themes of perseverance and following your dreams despite obstacles. However, when I opened my speech folder at the podium, I discovered that someone had replaced my carefully crafted pages with printouts of internet memes and jokes. Standing in front of hundreds of people with no speech was humiliating, but I managed to improvise something heartfelt about education and opportunity. Later, I found my original speech pages crumpled up in Melissa's car, confirming my suspicions about who was responsible for the sabotage. The final straw came at the graduation party our parents hosted at our house that evening. Family and friends had gathered to celebrate, and I was finally starting to feel better about the day despite the earlier disasters. That's when Melissa decided to make her move. In front of everyone, she stood up and made an announcement. She claimed that she had something important to share about my MIT acceptance. With crocodile tears in her eyes, she told our guests that I had only gotten into MIT because I had cheated on my SATs and lied on my application. She said she had been covering for me because she didn't want to ruin my reputation, but her conscience couldn't let her stay silent anymore. The room fell silent as Melissa continued her elaborate lie. She claimed to have evidence of my cheating and said that she had been trying to convince me to come clean before someone else discovered the truth. She painted herself as a concerned sister who was only looking out for my best interests, while portraying me as a fraud who had stolen opportunities from more deserving students. I was speechless with rage and betrayal. Everything Melissa was saying was completely false, but the way she told the story was convincing. She had clearly planned this moment carefully, choosing a time when I would be surrounded by family and friends and unable to properly defend myself without looking defensive. Some of our relatives began murmuring among themselves, and I could see doubt creeping into their expressions. The fact that my own sister was making these accusations gave them weight that they wouldn't have had coming from anyone else. Even some family friends who had known me for years looked uncertain. My parents' reaction was the most devastating part. Instead of immediately defending me or questioning Melissa's claims, they looked embarrassed and asked if we could discuss this privately. Their hesitation to support me in that moment felt like another betrayal on top of everything else. That night, after all the guests had left and the house was quiet, I confronted Melissa directly. I demanded to know why she was lying about me and trying to destroy my reputation. Her response was chilling in its honesty. She told me that if she couldn't have the MIT opportunity, she was going to make sure I couldn't enjoy it either. She said she had been planning ways to sabotage my college experience ever since I refused to give up my spot for her. Melissa admitted that she had poured bleach on my graduation dress, replaced my speech, and made up the cheating allegations. She seemed proud of her schemes and showed no remorse for the pain she had caused. When I asked her how she could live with herself, she shrugged and said that I had forced her hand by being selfish and unsupportive. The next morning, I made a decision that changed the trajectory of my relationship with my family forever. I gathered all the evidence I could find of my academic achievements over the years, printed out my official SAT scores and transcripts, and created a comprehensive file proving that Melissa's allegations were false. Then I sent copies to every family member and friend who had been at the graduation party, along with a detailed explanation of what had really happened. I also wrote a letter to my parents explaining that I could no longer live in a household where my sister was allowed to sabotage my achievements without consequences. I told them that unless they were willing to acknowledge what Melissa had done and demand that she apologize, I would be cutting contact with all of them. My mother called me dramatic and said that I was overreacting to what she considered sibling rivalry. My father suggested that both Melissa and I were at fault and that we needed to work things out between ourselves. Neither of them seemed to understand the severity of what Melissa had done or the impact it had on me. When it became clear that my parents were not going to hold Melissa accountable for her actions, I followed through on my threat. I packed my belongings, moved in with my best friend's family for the summer, and prepared to leave for MIT without looking back. The extended family's reaction to my evidence packet was mixed. Some relatives apologized for doubting me and expressed shock at Melissa's behavior. Others seemed uncomfortable with the family drama and chose to stay out of it entirely. A few even suggested that I should forgive Melissa because family was more important than pride. Update 1. I left for MIT in August with a mixture of excitement and sadness. While I was thrilled to finally start pursuing my dreams, it was painful to begin this new chapter without my family's support. The first few weeks of college were challenging as I adjusted to the rigorous coursework and tried not to think about the family drama I had left behind. My parents attempted to contact me several times during my first semester. They sent care packages and emails that completely ignored the elephant in the room, acting as if nothing had happened. They shared updates about Melissa, who had enrolled in a different engineering program at a state school, and seemed to expect me to be happy for her success. I responded politely but coldly to their communications, making it clear that I wasn't interested in pretending everything was normal. When they suggested I come home for Thanksgiving, I declined and spent the holiday with my roommate's family instead. The breaking point came during winter break when my mother called crying. She said that Melissa was struggling in her engineering courses and needed tutoring help. She wanted me to help my sister with her studies, either over video calls or by coming home to work with her in person. The audacity of this request after everything that had happened left me speechless. I told my mother that after what Melissa had done to me, I wouldn't lift a finger to help her academically. I reminded her that Melissa had tried to destroy my reputation and sabotage my education, and that the consequences of her actions were her own responsibility. My mother accused me of being vindictive and holding grudges, completely missing the point about accountability and consequences. Update 2. During my sophomore year at MIT, I received an unexpected Facebook message from one of my high school classmates. She told me that Melissa had been telling people around our hometown that I had dropped out of college due to the pressure and was working at a restaurant. She was apparently claiming that she had been right about my inability to handle MIT and that my acceptance had been a fluke. This revelation motivated me to be more public about my success. I started posting about my academic achievements, internship opportunities, and research projects on social media. I wanted to make it impossible for Melissa to continue spreading lies about my college experience. My posts caught the attention of several family members who congratulated me on my accomplishments. Some seemed surprised to learn that I was thriving at MIT, suggesting that they had believed at least some of Melissa's false narratives. This confirmation that my sister was still actively trying to damage my reputation validated my decision to maintain distance from my family. Around this time, I also learned that Melissa had switched her major from engineering to communications. Apparently, the math and science courses were too challenging for her, which wasn't surprising given her lack of preparation. However, instead of acknowledging that engineering might not be the right fit for her, she blamed the professors for being unfair and the curriculum for being unreasonably difficult. Update 3. The summer before my junior year, I landed a prestigious internship at SpaceX, which had been one of my dream companies since high school. The opportunity came with excellent pay and the chance to work on cutting-edge aerospace projects. I was over the moon about this achievement and decided to share the news on social media. Within hours of posting about my internship, I received a barrage of messages from extended family members expressing excitement and pride. Many admitted that they hadn't realized how well I was doing and apologized for any doubts they might have had. It felt validating to finally receive the recognition I had been seeking from my family, even if it came years later than it should have. However, my parents' reaction was notably different. Instead of congratulating me, my mother called to complain that I was making Melissa look bad by posting about my successes. She said that my sister was already struggling with self-esteem issues and that my achievements were making her feel worse about herself. I couldn't believe that my mother was asking me to hide my accomplishments to protect Melissa's feelings, especially after everything my sister had done to try to sabotage my success. I told my mother that Melissa's self-esteem was not my responsibility and that I had every right to be proud of my hard work. The conversation escalated when my mother suggested that I could help Melissa by getting her an internship at SpaceX as well. She seemed to think that because I was working there, I could somehow pull strings to get my sister a position despite her lack of qualifications. When I explained that internships at SpaceX were highly competitive and required specific technical skills, my mother accused me of being unwilling to help family. Update 4. My internship at SpaceX was incredible and led to a job offer for after graduation. I was thrilled to have my career path secured and felt proud of how far I had come despite my family's lack of support. As my senior year began, I was focused on finishing strong and preparing for my transition into the professional world. That's when I received a call that changed everything. It was from my uncle, my father's brother, who had always been one of the more reasonable family members. He told me that he needed to share something important about what had been happening at home. According to my uncle, the truth about Melissa's lies and sabotage had finally come to light in a big way. Apparently, Melissa had tried to pull similar schemes with other people in her life, including roommates and study partners at her university. Her pattern of jealousy and sabotage had eventually caught up with her when she was caught trying to damage another student's project before a major presentation. The incident at school led to Melissa being suspended and required to undergo counseling. During one of her therapy sessions, she had apparently broken down and confessed to everything she had done to me, including details that even I hadn't known about. My uncle said that my parents were finally beginning to understand the extent of Melissa's behavior and the damage she had caused. My father reached out to me shortly after my uncle's call. For the first time since the graduation incident, he offered a genuine apology. He admitted that he and my mother had been wrong to dismiss my concerns and should have held Melissa accountable for her actions. He said they had been so focused on protecting Melissa's feelings that they had failed to protect me from her harmful behavior. My father explained that they were now requiring Melissa to continue therapy and make amends for her past actions. He said that Melissa wanted to apologize to me directly and ask for my forgiveness. However, he made it clear that he wasn't calling to pressure me into reconciling, but rather to acknowledge the wrongs that had been done. Update 5. A few weeks later, I received a handwritten letter from Melissa. It was several pages long and appeared to be a genuine attempt at taking responsibility for her actions. She acknowledged the specific things she had done to sabotage my graduation and damage my reputation, and she expressed understanding of why I had cut contact with the family. In the letter, Melissa admitted that her behavior had been driven by jealousy and insecurity. She said that watching me succeed academically had made her feel inadequate and that she had responded by trying to tear me down instead of working to improve herself. She acknowledged that her actions had been cruel and selfish, and she said she was working with a therapist to understand and change these patterns. The letter included specific apologies for ruining my graduation dress, sabotaging my speech, making false accusations about cheating, and spreading lies about my college experience. Melissa also admitted to other instances of sabotage that I hadn't even known about, including times when she had hidden my homework or study materials during high school. Most importantly, the letter made it clear that Melissa wasn't expecting forgiveness or reconciliation. She said she understood that she had damaged our relationship beyond repair and that I had every right to maintain my boundaries. She explained that she was writing primarily to take accountability for her actions and to let me know that she was getting help. Reading the letter brought up a lot of complicated emotions. Part of me felt relieved to finally receive acknowledgement of what had happened, while another part of me was angry that it had taken years and multiple incidents for my family to recognize the truth. I appreciated that Melissa wasn't trying to manipulate me into forgiving her, but I also wasn't ready to let go of my anger. I decided to write back, not to Melissa, but to my parents. I thanked them for finally acknowledging what had happened and for requiring Melissa to get help. However, I explained that while I appreciated their apologies, I wasn't ready to resume a close relationship with any of them. I said that trust, once broken so severely, would take time to rebuild, and I needed to focus on my own life and career for now. I graduated from MIT summa cum laude and started my job at SpaceX as planned. My parents sent a graduation gift and a card expressing pride in my achievements, which felt bittersweet but meaningful. Some extended family members attended my graduation ceremony, filling the void left by my immediate family's absence. Today, several years later, I maintain limited contact with my parents and Melissa. We exchange holiday cards and occasional updates, but the relationship remains distant. Melissa has apparently continued with therapy and has made positive changes in her life, but I'm not interested in rebuilding our sisterly bond. My career has flourished beyond my wildest dreams. I've worked on several high-profile space missions and have been recognized for my contributions to aerospace engineering. Sometimes I wonder what might have been different if my family had been supportive from the beginning, but I've learned that success is often sweeter when you earn it entirely on your own. The experience taught me valuable lessons about setting boundaries, standing up for myself, and not allowing others to dim my light to make themselves feel better. While I wouldn't wish that family drama on anyone, I emerged from it stronger and more resilient than I ever thought possible. Looking back, I'm grateful that I didn't give in to my family's pressure to sacrifice my dreams for my sister's insecurities. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is to choose yourself, especially when family members try to make you feel guilty for pursuing your own happiness and success. But in the end, protecting my future was the right choice, and I've never regretted standing firm in my decision to attend MIT and build the life I had always dreamed of.